I put laxatives in my food to catch the thief. She ended up in the hospital, and now my boss wants me to apologize or lose my job. For the past 3 months, someone at my job has been consistently stealing my food that I bring from home, so I don't have to use the snack machine or walk across the street to McDonald's like the majority of my coworkers do. In the first month, I noticed someone had been gradually taking some of my food. 1 out of 3 slices of pizza gone, 20% of my soup gone, Cheetos bag completely gone, etc. Didn't think much of it, and simply decided to now attach a "please don't touch" paper sign on my stuff. In the second month, at start of the month, my food became untouched, but progressively went back to the usual. At the beginning of the third month, I asked coworkers if they had taken or knew who was taking my food, and no one had a clue, which is kind of believable as most of us take our lunches separately. I decided to eat McDonald's or go to 7-Eleven and stop bringing food, but then it started fucking with my financial stability. 10 to 12 days a paycheck, 14 days, consistently buying food? I decided to take matters into my own hands. My friend told me about a reel that she saw where a girl put laxative into her own food to see who was the culprit, and that's exactly what I did. What I wasn't expecting was for the girl, late 20s, to have an allergic reaction to an ingredient and ended up going to the hospital. After work, all of us went to visit her in the hospital where we all talked about what happened and admitting to putting laxative into my own food. 8 coworkers, all girls, were disgusted by my actions and were on her side. One girl was whatever about it, and the last guy said she shouldn't have been touching my food to begin with. I told the girl that I hope she gets better and went home, but I didn't apologize for what I did, and I'm not going to. Today, day off, I received a phone call from our supervisor who I spoke to about my issue between after the first month and told me she can't help me there because she's not our mom, and essentially told me I had to apologize to her or else I wouldn't be able to come back to work until I do. And I'm assuming if I take too many days, I'd just be fired for not coming to work. Update 1. So, a lot has happened since my last post. Honestly, I never expected to be in this situation, and I certainly didn't think my food would lead to this much drama. But here we are. I've spent the last few days reflecting on everything, and, man, it's a lot to process. I'm still feeling torn about whether I handled things right, but I'm also trying to wrap my head around the fact that this whole thing could cost me my job. Anyway, let me give you guys the full update since there's been quite a few developments. For those of you who didn't catch my original post, here's the basic rundown. For the past few months, someone at my job has been stealing the food I bring from home. It started small, just a few bites missing here and there. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as it continued, it started to really bother me. I'm not exactly rolling in cash, so bringing food from home was a way for me to save money. Every time someone took my food, it felt like a personal violation. So I did what most people would do. I started putting up notes asking people to stop. That didn't work. Then I tried asking around, seeing if anyone would fess up or if they knew who was behind it. Nothing. After a while, I started getting desperate. One of my friends suggested that I do what she saw in a TikTok or a reel, put laxatives in my food to catch the culprit. I didn't think it would come to that, but after weeks of frustration, I figured, why not? I had no idea it would escalate the way it did. Turns out, the person stealing my food was a coworker, a girl in her late 20s. She ended up eating the laxative-laced food and had an allergic reaction to one of the ingredients. She went to the hospital, which of course turned everything upside down at work. Suddenly, it wasn't just about stolen food anymore. It became this huge ordeal, with people taking sides and gossip flying around like crazy. After work, a group of us, including me, went to visit her in the hospital. The visit was tense, to say the least. Most of my coworkers were disgusted by what I did. Out of 8 coworkers, 6 of them made it clear that they thought I was in the wrong. They said it wasn't right to put something like that in my food, no matter the reason. Only one of them, a guy, stood by me. He said she shouldn't have been touching my food in the first place, and honestly, I agree with him. If she hadn't been stealing my food, none of this would have happened. I didn't apologize to her, and I didn't plan on it either. I told her I hoped she got better, but that was about it. I wasn't going to apologize for defending what was mine. The next day, I got a phone call from my supervisor. This is the same supervisor I spoke to about the food theft after the first month. When I first brought up the issue, she brushed it off, saying she couldn't do anything because she wasn't our mom, and that we needed to handle things like adults. Well, now she was telling me I had to apologize to the girl who ended up in the hospital. According to her, if I didn't apologize, I wouldn't be allowed to come back to work. I was stunned. I mean, how is it fair that I'm being punished for something that wouldn't have happened if someone else hadn't been stealing from me? I tried to explain my side to my supervisor, but she wasn't having it. She made it clear that if I didn't apologize, I'd be facing consequences, including potentially losing my job if I took too many days off while this whole thing blew over. So here I am, stuck in this bizarre situation where I'm being asked to apologize for someone else's behavior. The girl who was stealing my food is now being treated like a victim, and I'm the villain in everyone's eyes. It's frustrating beyond belief. I've been thinking about this nonstop since the phone call, trying to figure out what my next move should be. Part of me feels like I shouldn't have to apologize. After all, she was the one who was in the wrong from the start. She had no business taking my food, and if she hadn't done that, none of this would have happened. But another part of me knows that if I don't apologize, I could lose my job, and I can't afford to be out of work right now. At this point, I'm feeling completely stuck. No matter what I do, it feels like I'm the one who's going to come out of this looking bad. If I apologize, it feels like I'm admitting guilt, which I don't think I should have to do. But if I don't apologize, I'm risking my job and possibly even a lawsuit. It's a lose-lose situation, and it's driving me crazy. To make things worse, I went back to work the next day, and the atmosphere was just awful. People were whispering behind my back, and I could tell that most of my coworkers were giving me the cold shoulder. The girl who ended up in the hospital wasn't there, obviously, but the gossip was still in full swing. Some people were even saying that I had purposely tried to poison her, which is just ridiculous. I didn't know who was stealing my food at the time, and I certainly didn't know she had any allergies. If I had known, I wouldn't have done it, but honestly, how was I supposed to know? It's not like she ever told anyone she had allergies, and even if she did, it doesn't change the fact that she was stealing my food in the first place. Anyway, the tension at work has been unbearable. Every time I walk into the break room, people either stop talking or make some kind of passive-aggressive comment about watching their food. It's like I'm the office pariah now. No one wants to talk to me, and the ones who do are clearly doing it out of obligation. I've even noticed a few people giving me dirty looks, like I'm some kind of criminal. It's ridiculous. Then, yesterday, things took another turn for the worse. My boss called me into her office again, and this time she wasn't just asking me to apologize. She was warning me that the girl's family was considering legal action. Apparently, they're claiming that I poisoned her, and they're threatening to sue the company if I don't apologize and if they don't take some kind of action against me. My boss told me that I should seriously consider apologizing to avoid a lawsuit, and that I should also think about getting a lawyer, just in case. She didn't say it outright, but it was pretty clear that the company is more concerned about covering their own ass than they are about me or what actually happened. At this point, I'm honestly at a loss for what to do. I don't want to apologize, but I also don't want to get sued or lose my job. I've been thinking about what my coworker, the guy who's on my side, said the other day. He asked me if I ever wondered why she was the only one stealing my food. At first, I didn't really get what he was trying to say, but then he told me that this girl has a history of pulling stunts like this. Apparently, she's done the same thing at other jobs, stealing food, getting caught, and then somehow turning the situation around to make herself look like the victim. He said he's seen it happen before, and that this whole allergy thing might not even be real. I was skeptical at first, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. The way she reacted, the timing of everything, it just seems too convenient. So now, I'm left wondering if this whole thing was some kind of setup from the beginning. Maybe she knew what she was doing all along. Maybe she wanted to get caught so she could play the victim and get sympathy from everyone. It sounds crazy, but at this point, nothing would surprise me. I've been considering my options, and honestly, I think I might need to get a lawyer involved. This whole situation has gotten way out of hand, and I don't want to end up losing my job or getting sued over something that wasn't my fault in the first place. I never thought something as simple as bringing food to work could lead to all of this. But here we are. I'll keep you guys updated as things progress, but for now, I'm just trying to figure out what my next move should be. Part of me wants to fight this and stand my ground, but another part of me is just exhausted by the whole thing and wants it to be over. I never thought a little office drama could escalate into something this serious, but I guess that's just how life goes sometimes. Update 2. Alright, so I didn't expect to be back with another update this quickly, but things have escalated in a way I never anticipated. It feels like every time I think I'm starting to get a handle on the situation, something else gets thrown at me. I'll try to keep this one a bit shorter since I'm still processing everything. After the last update, where I mentioned that my coworker, the one who's been stealing my food, might be pulling some kind of long con with this whole allergy thing, I decided to do some digging. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but the more I thought about it, the more it just didn't sit right with me. How does someone consistently steal food, end up having an allergic reaction, and then turn the whole thing around to make me look like the bad guy? So I started asking around, talking to some of my coworkers who have been at the company longer than I have, and trying to see if anyone else noticed anything weird about her. Here's the kicker. Turns out this isn't the first time she's pulled something like this. One of my coworkers, who's been here for years, told me she's had a bit of a reputation for being sneaky with people's lunches. Apparently, this has been happening on and off for a while, but she's always been able to deflect suspicion, either by making jokes or playing it off like someone else was to blame. She's always managed to skate by without getting caught. But what really threw me was that this same coworker hinted that she's pulled the allergic reaction card before. That's when I realized I might be in deeper than I thought. I don't have concrete proof, but there's definitely a pattern here. It seems like every time she gets caught or things get too close to exposing her, something conveniently happens that makes her the victim. The more I talk to people, the more I realize that she's been manipulating the situation for years, and I just happen to be the unlucky person who got caught in her latest scheme. So now, I'm not just dealing with workplace drama over stolen food, I'm potentially dealing with someone who's a professional victim. I started to wonder if her allergic reaction was even real, or if she was just using it to make me look worse. I mean, she never mentioned any allergies before, and she seemed fine every other time she took my food. It just seems too coincidental that this time, when I try to catch her, she suddenly has this life-threatening reaction. Something about it feels off. To make matters worse, HR called me in for another meeting. They've now received a formal complaint from her, claiming that I intentionally poisoned her. HR was being very diplomatic about the whole thing, but it was clear they're leaning toward taking her side. They've asked me to write up an official apology and basically hinted that if I don't, things could get worse for me. The words potential legal action were thrown around again, and honestly, that's what has me the most worried. I don't want this to spiral into something that could seriously affect my future. I don't think I'm in the wrong here. If someone hadn't been taking my food, none of this would have happened. But now it feels like I'm being backed into a corner. Apologize and let her continue getting away with this. Or hold my ground and risk getting fired. Or worse, sued. It's the worst kind of no-win situation. The only bright spot in all of this has been that one coworker, the guy who stood up for me originally. He's been really supportive and keeps telling me I shouldn't back down. He said that if I apologize, it's basically admitting that I did something wrong when I didn't. He even suggested that I should go to HR myself with all the information I've been gathering, but I'm not sure if that would help or just make things worse. HR is already treating this like a potential legal disaster, and I don't know if pushing back would just make me more of a target. But here's the crazy part. There's a rumor going around that she might not even come back to work. Apparently, she's been talking to some of the other coworkers and saying that she doesn't feel safe coming back to the office while I'm still there. Which, if you ask me, is total BS. But if she plays the victim hard enough, she might just be able to get the company to side with her completely. It's like she's setting the stage to make me look like some kind of office villain, and I can't shake the feeling that this is all part of her plan. At this point, I'm really starting to consider my options. My boss hasn't outright said it yet, but I can tell she's leaning on me to apologize and make this all go away. The company doesn't want the hassle of a lawsuit, And they definitely don't want the bad PR that could come with it. But the idea of apologizing to someone who has been lying and stealing from me for months just doesn't sit right with me. It feels like I'd be letting her win, and I'm not sure I can stomach that. To make things even more stressful, I've been thinking about what HR said about potential legal action, and I've been wondering if I need to talk to a lawyer myself. I don't want this to go to court, but if it does, I need to be prepared. I've started documenting everything, every conversation, every weird interaction, every time she took my food. I'm not about to go down without a fight, but honestly, I'm exhausted. This whole thing has taken such a toll on me mentally, and it feels like it's never going to end. I know a lot of people in the comments last time were telling me to stick to my guns and not apologize, and I appreciate the support. But man, this situation is so much more complicated than I ever thought it would be. I just want to go to work, do my job, and not have to deal with all this nonsense. But now I'm stuck in the middle of this ridiculous drama, and it's starting to feel like there's no way out without some kind of fallout. Anyway, that's where things stand right now. I'm still deciding what to do next, but I'll keep you guys updated if anything else happens. I've got a lot to think about over the next few days. Do I keep fighting this? Or do I just apologize and hope it all goes away? I wish there was a clear answer, but right now, everything feels like a mess. Thanks again for all the advice and support. I'll update again when I figure out my next move.